One of the ideas I was thinking about recently was the difference between our physical evolution and our mental evolution, so to speak. And if I post it, I talk about it in one of the other videos a little bit. But the basic idea is our physical evolution is very similar to animals, right? We still evolve by the processes of natural selection, where people who, and it's, here's a good example. Let's say there's a big virus going around. People who are more resistant to that virus will survive, and therefore there's a selective pressure for the genes of those people, for the viral resistant gene. That's why things like sickle cell exist, because sickle cell, I believe it's malaria that it's a bit more resistant to. So it exists because a lot of people died from malaria, people with sickle cell got passed on, those genes got passed on. Sickle cell is now a trait that's kind of going around. Or a trait, not like going around, but a trait that exists. So we've got that, and then we also have our mental evolution, which one of the examples I gave in the other video was instead of growing fur, we wear fur. Our knowledge is kind of a separate form of evolution that's way faster, that allows us to go from, we were basically middle of the food chain to essentially ruling the world with our cities, our towns, our big guns and nuclear weapons. So we've kind of got that mental evolution aspect. And one of the things that's really interesting with that is that our instincts and our physical abilities haven't really changed that much for quite a while. It's mainly our mental abilities and our knowledge, because we can pass down knowledge especially, that have just accelerated our ability to dominate. And I like to think of it as kind of a pseudo evolution. We're not actually evolving, but we've got almost fake evolution that allows us to just change rapidly, change what we're doing rapidly for things. The idea I wanted to present in this video though is from a paper written by someone named Anu Benson, and it was called Building Paradise. And the basic idea was they were trying to analyze what the ideal human habitat would be. Is it a city? Is it the countryside? What is it, nature, woodlands? What's the ideal human habitat? What I thought was really interesting is that she basically said, I think it's a she, but the author basically said that the ideal human habitat, instead of being physical, is actually mental. I thought that was really interesting because we have that mental evolution aspect, and that needs to be heavily considered. And instead of it being, you kind of think nature at first, right? We evolved in nature, nature makes sense. But what the author basically presents, Anu Benson, what the author presents is that nature was actually often considered it was a source of lots of anxiety because it was a source of danger and uncertainty. And and then one of the other things she also says is that when you look at nature, it's actually nature that is safe that invokes positive feelings, whereas for most people, nature that's dangerous does not. And a lot of people also come to cities as a form of relaxing and refreshing themselves. So there's kind of all of that information, but how the author kind of ties it together is, and I think this is so interesting, is that our ideal environment is actually a mental one, and the mental attributes this environment has is somewhere we have kind of freedom, we have room to learn and grow. That's one of the reasons why nature can be considered to be so good for us, because instead of it being regular straight lines, if it's safe nature, so nature without, like, let's say lions and stuff, if it's safe nature that we feel safe in, just look at a tree. Trees have all these crazy patterns. They're so interesting. When you look at animals, they have all these patterns. It's an environment where we can learn. So the ideal attributes, we can grow, we kind of have freedom, we can learn, and there's intricacies that we can learn from, and also that we feel safe. So I thought that was just really interesting, this idea of, because we have this kind of pseudo evolution, we're evolving mentally as well as physically. Our ideal habitat is literally mental, which is pretty cool.